Hi, my name is David Pearson, and I am a medical physicist at the University of Toledo in the Radiation Oncology Department. I'm currently the program director for the Radiation Therapy Medical Physics Residency, but I'm also involved in the graduate program. I often get asked a question, how do I become a medical physicist? So the purpose of this presentation will be to try to answer that question, how do you become a medical physicist in the United States? I'm specifically going to talk about how to become a medical physicist in radiation oncology, but I will mention that there are other pathways and try and give us some information about that. So to talk about how do you become a medical physicist, we're going to break this talk down into a couple of different sections. The first section is going to be how do you get into a graduate program, because a graduate program is going to be where medical physics training starts. We'll talk about how graduate programs are not specialized. They're intended to train you how to become a medical physicist very broadly, but not specialize into any specific area. We'll talk about things like clinical rotations and the kind of things that you might be expected to do as a graduate student. And then we'll talk about residency. And then residency is where you're going to actually get special clinical training, although not everybody is going to need that. So we'll talk about the different career paths and alternatives to going into the clinic and becoming a clinical physicist. In order to get accepted into a CAMPEP accredited graduate program, you will first of all have to do a degree at an undergraduate level. Now, ideally, this degree should be a physics degree. That will give you the best chance of being accepted into the majority of graduate programs in the US. But it does not have to be a degree in physics. You could, for example, do a degree in nuclear engineering and be accepted into a CAMPEP accredited graduate program. The CAMPEP standards for accepting someone into a degree program are that the applicant must have a strong foundation in physics, and the undergraduate degree should be at least equivalent to a minor in physics. So again, ideally a major in physics, but you can be accepted with something equivalent to a minor in physics. Now I mentioned that CAMPEP accreditation. CAMPEP is the Commission on Accreditation for Medical Physics Education Programs, and basically CAMPEP sets the standard for all of the medical physics graduate programs, and they set down a bunch of guidelines and rules that programs need to follow in their education format. So for example, a two-year graduate program for a master's degree would be CAMPEP accredited. And that's going to become important because if you want to be accepted into a residency, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you're going to need to have graduated from an accredited program from CAMPEP. Let's talk a little bit now about the different types of graduate programs. There are essentially three basic groups of medical physics graduate programs. The first that I'm going to talk about is a two-year master's degree, an MS in medical physics. There are a number of programs around the country that offer a master's degree in medical physics. The second degree is going to be a DMP, a Doctor of Medical Physics. Typically, this is a four-year program that consists of something similar to the two-year master's degree program, but also includes 2 years of clinical training that will fulfill the requirement for a residency. And then the final type of degree program is going to be the PhD in medical physics. Sometimes these degrees are actually PhDs in physics with a concentration in medical physics. The University of Toledo, for example, offers the master's degree and has a PhD program as well, both of which are CAMPEP accredited. We do not have a DMP program. There are actually only a handful of DMP programs around the country, but we'll talk about it a little bit because it may be of interest to you if you're considering the different types of graduate education. Basically, what it comes down to, the difference between these three is what exactly your expectations are after you finish the graduate degree. If you expect to go into academia and you maybe would like to teach medical physics at an institution similar to where you learn medical physics, then maybe the best choice for you is going to be the PhD. If you're interested in doing research and publishing information that's going to guide medical physicists in the future, then again, maybe the PhD is correct for you. But it's not the best choice for everybody. The downside of doing a PhD is obviously the extra time. PhDs will typically take 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They don't necessarily have a fixed endpoint because it's going to be dependent on how well your research goes. A PhD requires you to do unique research that is going to advance the field of medical physics. So it's not going to be for everyone because of that extra time. So let's talk a little bit about an alternative like a master's degree program and who would be most appropriate to do a master's degree. A master's degree is for people that ideally would like to work in the clinic and don't care so much about whether there's going to be teaching or research expectations of them. So, for example, a lot of master's degree students will complete the degree, go off and do a residency program, and then start working in a clinic. So if you're interested in becoming a medical physicist in the absolute shortest possible time, a master's degree is one of the options. The final option is going to be that DNP program that we talked about. It's hard to really classify exactly what kind of education you're going to get here, but it's going to be somewhere similar to a master's degree, maybe a little bit slightly more advanced. And it comes with it comes embedded in the program that you will do the 2 years of clinical training that you would get from a residency. So some people will think of it as being a 2-year master's degree plus a residency. So this sounds like a great idea. Why get accepted into a master's degree program when you're going to need to do a residency afterwards when you could just do all of this in one go? Well, the downside is essentially that residency is usually paid. Most residents in the US in the field of medical physics will get a salary of somewhere in the range of about $50,000 US. If you complete your residency requirements as part of a graduate program like the DNP, you will probably not get paid for those 2 years that you could be a resident. So although you are actually being accepted into a program that has a guaranteed residency, ultimately you are going to be paying for that residency out of your own pocket. So again, it's going to be pros and cons. The advice that I give my students is if they believe that they are very competitive for a residency program, they would be better off completing the master's degree program and then going into the residency separately. If they're not 100% sure whether they're a competitive applicant, then maybe a DNP program is appropriate because you'll get that guarantee of a residency. Again, there's not really any single piece of advice that the students can tell. Maybe the best thing to do is to talk to people at residency programs around the country, to graduate programs around the country. Talk to some people in a master's degree if you're interested in doing a DNP. Talk to some people in a DNP, and definitely talk to some people in a residency about their transition from graduate school to residency. Now we're going to talk a little bit here about residency programs. But before we get into residency programs, let's talk about who needs residency and who does not. Residency programs are going to be a requirement for people that are going to be working in a clinic. If you want to work in a clinic as a medical physicist, and maybe you're going to be the only medical physicist in the clinic, or maybe you want to be the person that's responsible for patients in the clinic, then you're going to need to go to a CAMPEP accredited residency program, unless of course you went through that previously mentioned DNP program that had the residency built in. But if you want to work in a clinic and you want to become board certified in radiation therapy, then you're going to need a residency program. So let's stop and ask ourselves, well then, who would not want to do that? There are, of course, jobs for medical physicists that are not in the clinic. We work with vendors, we work with companies that produce radiation therapy products. And often they need to have medical physicists in order to be able to design, to research, or to service those products. And so someone with a degree in medical physics, maybe the master's degree in medical physics, maybe at a very upper echelon position, a PhD or a DNP in medical physics, those people are going to be needed by the industry. And if you're working in industry and you're not directly responsible for the care of patients, then you don't need to do a residency program. It also means that you don't need to become board certified, and board certified is not a one-time test that will allow you to become board certified forever. Board certification is a constant process. Once certified, you need to continuously re-educate yourself and retest yourself every few years. And so one way to avoid that rather rigorous process is to not work in the clinic. Now, when it comes to the salary of the different people working in the clinic versus working in industry, I can't really give you too much information as who is going to get paid what. I can only really talk about what you can expect to be paid if you work in a radiation therapy clinic, but that's only a small piece of the puzzle. So I'm not going to try and go into the details of that too much. I will mention that residents themselves will likely be paid. The vast majority of residencies in the US for medical physicists are paid positions. A typical salary would be of the order of $50,000, but if you would like to know more information about that, the information can generally be found on the internet. People that are interested in going into residency will often refer to a Google document online, which is a spreadsheet of many of the programs in the that are running in the residency and offering jobs. You can find lots of interesting details about those residency positions within that Google document. And that information often includes how many positions they have available each year and also how much those residents get paid. As mentioned, it's about $50,000, but that's just a kind of an average, and there will be programs that get paid significantly more than that, maybe because they're in a place that's got a very high cost of living, and there may be programs that cannot afford to pay that kind of money. So residency, again, is a requirement for those that are interested in going into the clinic. Once you've completed the residency program, in radiation therapy, you could expect to earn about $150,000 in 2023. This is based on salaries for students and residents that have graduated from my program or from programs that I'm aware of. And so we can fairly reliably say that at least people working in the eastern or central United States can expect a starting salary straight out of residency of about $150,000. Now that's for people with typically a 2-year master's degree plus a 2-year residency, and that would be your expected starter salary. It will be a little bit higher, although not a lot higher if you have a PhD and possibly a DMP. But just because you have a more advanced degree does not necessarily mean you're going to command a much higher salary. It's not necessarily going to be worth the additional time. At least you're certainly not going to get a return on investment within the first few years. So to briefly summarize, in order to become a medical physicist in the US or in North America, you're going to need to complete a graduate program that is CAMPUP accredited. That could be a 2-year master's degree program, or it could be a longer DMP or PhD. The vast majority of people are going to do a master's degree or a PhD because there are not that many DMP programs. Following the graduate degree, the vast majority of people are going to, if they wish to go work in a clinic, they're going to need to do a residency program. Residency programs tend to be more, they are for sure more specialized. They are for people that have chosen a specialty, whether it be radiation therapy or another field. And then following a 2-year or possibly longer, there are some 3-year residencies. Following that, they will be able to work and become board certified. I'll probably do another video on the process of becoming board certified because I think that's an interesting topic just on its own. But that is going to be the goal for people that work in the clinic. If anyone has any questions about this, you can reach out to me. I am available via email. You can find me by just Googling me, or you can use the email address that's listed here. I'm currently at the University of Toledo, where we do have a graduate program, the 2-year master's degree program. We also offer a PhD program, and we have a residency. Probably the most unique thing about our graduate program is that the vast majority of our residents are graduates of our own graduate program. that's a useful thing to look for when you're looking for different graduate programs. If you can find a place where you can do graduate studies and they will help you find a residency, then that's definitely an appealing part of this process. So please feel free to follow us on Twitter or look at more of our YouTube videos. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope to see you all again soon.